Hello tanks and tankettes, and welcome to a viewer replay from Morpheus der Stahlkäfer here, who I actually featured a little earlier in the year, back in February. And in that case it was in the ISM, and they had a pretty monster game, and this isn't going to be too different, although this time round they are in the 50 TP, which is why it caught my eye. I was looking through the replays for one to pick out, and I thought, oh, I'll take a look at this one, and it's going to be quite the game. Now, the 50 TP itself, I won't talk about too much because there are other videos out there of people who, actually played it for one thing. But just looking at the stats, looking at the armor profile, well, it seems reasonably balanced, except for maybe the gun. The actual armor itself is interesting because it's got some strengths and weaknesses to work around. It's a tank which will reward the player actually knowing what the armor profile is like. But the gun is, yeah, maybe a bit more arguably an example of power creep. It's a 440 average damage gun, which doesn't have any huge penalties. It doesn't suffer from low DPM, especially. The aim time is not superb, but it's, what, 3-second base aim time for a 122mm gun that hits for 440, so that's not especially a penalty. The dispersion figures, again, really quite okay. It doesn't suffer from terrible gun depression. In fact, it gets 10 degrees over the sides and 8 to the front, and it's also got pretty decent DPM, so it gets to hit really quite hard for a tier 8 heavy tank, but doesn't have any particular penalties for doing so. It's not especially fast though, I'll give it that. It tops out at 35 kph, and the power to weight isn't anything super special either, so it's not quite the in-your-face tank that the Defender is, for example. But this is still going to be a scary opponent if you are like down-tiered, as are a lot of the enemy team, because this is a 3-5-7 game, so he really does have quite an advantage here. But as you can see, he's already taken a hit from a lower tier tank, that KB3, and although the KB3 is now dead, it shows that this thing isn't invulnerable. However, having that amount of damage versus tier 6s, yeah, that Hellcat had a real fun time, right? Now, he's also caught the attention of this KB2, and if the KB2 had the derp gun, this might be a little more worrisome, but as it turns out, no, that's a KB2 with the 107. And so, as long as he can only get hit in the turret, he really shouldn't have much of a problem. He's also ducked into this, this ruined house area here to avoid getting hit in the side. But, well, that's now pinned him down, because although it was fine in terms of fighting the KB2, the VK, the enemy top tier heavy, has turned around to actually deal with him. Now, fortunately, he snaps his first shot. He just pulls up, fires and misses, and that is fortunate because it's not like he can really hide his vulnerable armor in this state, so the second shot does actually hit. But although they have the same amount of alpha, Morpheus definitely has the better reload, and so when he goes forwards to hug the side of this VK, well, he was always going to win. Meanwhile, the Jagdpanther 2 has popped up behind, and that also could hurt a lot. In fact, that could potentially kill him. Now he's on this level of health, but he has this convenient VK corpse to use, and his tank is just tall enough that he can just fire over, and although his first shot didn't do much, he can hit the Jagdpanther for, well, not that far off what the Jagdpanther can hit him for, because that can pack a, what is it, like 490 average damage gun with the 128mm. 440 is not far off 490, if you're trading 1-for-1 with a Jagdpanther 2 in the open, you know which one's going to run out of hit points first. So he pauses a moment, gets distracted a moment, trying to figure out if he can get a shot on that T-34-85, and realises that no, that's not happening for the time being. There's more useful things he could be doing right now. So he pushes forward again and tries to locate this Black Prince that was last seen in this direction. And the rest of the map, well, this was quite a chaotic game for Himmelsdorf, really. If you've been paying attention, you'll see that everyone's just been running around, and although their team does have the hill theoretically, they're not going to hold on to it for too much longer, at least in terms of the tanks that are up there, because a Super Pershing has just turned up who is going to be able to hull down and manage to actually take out at least a couple of the tanks that are there. I'm not sure why the Tiger P shot at the ground next to him, maybe. A little, hey, you stole my kill moment? Who knows? Didn't seem to be a serious attempt to team damage, though. So, he's now here with the Tiger P. The hill is looking increasingly dicey, although I'll tell you now that Rudy is going to make a getaway. There's a low-health Cromwell that he was never going to be able to chase down, so he's actually turned around to try and flank round, except that's the moment when the Jagdpanther 2 has turned up. But he's sort of committed at this point, so he keeps trundling around, and as I said, 35 isn't particularly great. You know, it's not slow, but it's definitely not fast, and so a quicker tank might have been able to save the Tiger P here. But as it is, Morpheus just cannot get around that block of buildings quick enough. He is, though, easily going to kill the Jagdpanther 2. His first shot was non-damaging, but tracked him in place. So, although artillery is somewhere behind, this is looking not too bad. He does have to be wary about letting people get his side armour, though, because even a tier 6 can pen it. And unluckily, having just repaired his tracks, that Cromwell's one penetrating hit, in fact, damages his ammo rack. Now, I don't think his loader is actually taken out here. I think this is a little graphical glitch, because once he gets his medkit back, it's not actually going to, he's not going to use it. So, and it doesn't seem like the reload reflects both a knocked out loader and a damaged ammo rack. That would be pretty much the worst possible reload you could get, and it's still not that bad. So rather than push out, he lays a little ambush which the T-34 walks into, and again, that's a tier 6 versus this gun. It's not going to go well for the tier 6, although they do have a chance of winning this. You know, he's low health, he's got currently a damaged ammo rack, his one ally is also very, very low health. It sort of depends what level of hit points the Super Pershing is on, and well, there goes the Rudy, so it is now just him alone. So there's the T-43, who not quite an average damage roll there, but still 430. You know, even if you don't hit your average damage, you're still gonna really hurt people. And although he has a little bit of cover here in terms of rubble and wrecks and things, they could mob him. They could easily mob him. And so, although he's a tier 8 versus a whole bunch of mostly lower tiers, it's theirs to lose at this point. So, takes out the artillery, and then this happens. He had to be slightly worried at this point. That wouldn't have killed him. But, no, the T-40, the T-34 85M just kind of casually drove past. And he did take a damaging hit from him anyway, but weirdly it wasn't when he was at his most vulnerable. So then he kills the Super Pershing in very rapid succession, who was fortunately low health. I just lose the T-43, who of course he'd also left on very low health. And there we have it. He's managed to walk away with 10 kills and 6.7k damage. That's a Pools medal, as well as a Spartan for surviving at the end there, bouncing a bouncing a shot when he's very, very low health. So the enemy team could have won that, even so, even with the disadvantage of being bottom tier. But when you look at, his own team and the enemy team, the damage is a lot more spread out over the enemy team, whereas his own team, not so much. There was the CDC that did approaching 2,000 damage. Everybody else was easily less than 1,000. So, yeah, if he hadn't been top tier there, I don't know he would have been able to carry that. So, in a way, this is why Wargaming has +2 matchmaking as it is, so that players can have matches like this. But it really sucks if you're on the wrong end of it. And it must have really sucked for quite a lot of the tier 6s on the enemy team. But as I say, even so, I think they still could have won that. They still had the opportunity to take down Morpheus and just were not coordinated when it mattered. So anyway, that is the 50 TP, which, as I say, doesn't look like it's horribly overpowered, but arguably with that gun, bit of power creep going on there. We'll see what the comments section thinks anyway. But regardless, I thought that was quite an entertaining match. It was a very close match, and hopefully you all enjoyed it as much as I did. And if you did, that segue, you can of course do all the usual things underneath the video, and as always, stay tuned for more.